Good evening. My name is Celeste La Cabra, and today I was hoping to discuss the new A24 horror film from director Ty West. It's entitled X. I saw this in the theater last Friday, and I really enjoyed it, and I had a lot of thoughts on its themes and its messages. And so I wanted to do a quick spoiler-free review in case you just wanted to get a general overview of my thoughts. And then before we get into the, deeper analysis, I'll give a warning, I'll give my score, and then we can go into spoiler and analytical territory. So the film basically follows some 1970s filmmakers as they set out to make a pornographic film out in the country. And when they arrive, they discover that their hosts are not as welcoming or as kind as one may hope. So generally, I think the film is a really excellent love letter to 70s filmmaking and to exploitation and adult cinema in general. It's clear that a lot of love went into this project, and that there's a bit of the director in the characters as they're setting out to make marginalized genre cinema on a very low, micro to no budget. I found the performances especially impressive, especially from the lead actress Mia Goth. I did not realize that she was playing both the main young actress in the film and also the very much older lady as well. She's like a chameleon, in the performance, and I was pretty taken aback when I got home and discovered that those two characters were played by the same person. The film also utilizes a lot of really stylized violence, utilizing, to my eye, almost all practical effects. There's maybe a scene here or there that looked like it was digitally altered or maybe CG'd a bit. I also wanted to give a shout out to Brittany Snow's character, Bobby Lynn. I think that her character is just so confident and sexy and wonderful to watch on screen. Her character is just cool as shit, and I love her. So overall, it gets an 8 out of 10 from me. It's not as, I guess, experimental or avant-garde or out there as I was expecting it to be. If you're expecting something like The Witch or The Lighthouse or, some of these other more experimental A24 horror ventures, I would temper your expectations a bit, because I think it plays like a fairly traditional horror film. But I think that it does what it does with its material expertly, and yeah, I highly recommend it. So if you haven't seen it yet, I would stop the video here, because now I'm about to get into the deeper analysis in its themes, and to do that I have to tell you what happens in the movie. So hopefully you've seen it, or you just don't care about spoilers if you decided to stick around. So I guess primarily I think that the film thematically is dealing with the friction between the older generation that is portrayed by Howard and Pearl's characters, and the generation that is portrayed by all of the younger filmmakers. The primary way that this is explored is through the lens of sexual conservatism versus sexual liberation. And further, it's explored through the lens of Christianity versus secularism. So I guess to illustrate that point, the character of Pearl, I think, is where most of these themes come to fruition and are the most richly explored. So essentially what you have in Pearl's character is, a sort of example of sexual repression and It's unclear whether or not her character is queer. There's certainly scenes in it that would indicate that. Like when she watches these women having sex, very voyeuristically, I suppose, and lustfully, you know. But the primary scene where this shows up is when she gets into Maxine's bed as she's sleeping and, you know, essentially cuddles up to her and becomes a sort of lesbian lover for a second, you know. It's unclear whether she's actually attracted to her or whether she just wants to become her, but it's clear that there is an attraction there to some extent. I think the primary motivation for so much of the violence in the film, it stems from Pearl, and it stems from her jealousy of the younger people. And that jealousy stems from her ideology that has taken away the life that she both wanted and that she deserved. So she sees sexually liberated young people, and she's obviously very jealous of this because she's obviously a very sexual person herself. But unfortunately, her ideology, her Christian conservatism, doesn't allow her to explore that or take advantage of that in a way that's healthy. She tries to secure this within the confines of what society deems acceptable within her married life, but it clearly isn't cutting it for her. One, because her husband seems unable to fulfill her needs, and two, because, you know, it's clearly not enough to just be with him. Like, she's missing out on decades of her own sexual identity and her own sexual life. Another point that I think is important to bring up is that rather than using the knowledge that her ideology has stunted her potential and has caused her a very harmful and unfulfilling life, rather than using that knowledge to support the liberation of people younger than her and of the people that she meets on the farm, she uses that knowledge to punish them. She throws it in Maxine's face, especially in the end, when she essentially asserts, like, you are going to become exactly what I am now. Like, you may think that you're free, you may think that you're happy, you may think that the life you're leading will lead to good outcomes, but in the end you're going to be just like me, right? However, throughout the film, Maxine is constantly asserting her right to the life that she feels she wants and that she feels that she deserves. She's constantly looking in the mirror and reminding herself that she's a valid person, worthy of success and worthy of happiness. And she says as much to Pearl's face as, you know, Pearl is saying that she's going to end up being nothing. She's going to end up just like her. And, you know, that's something that Pearl has to believe for her ideology to hold up. She sees these younger people being free and being happy. However, for her ideology to make sense and for her life to have not been wasted, she needs to believe that that won't last. You know, that she's going to end up old and repressed and sad and alone, essentially. But in the end, Maxine rejects this. You know, she asserts that she will not become like her, that the life she's leading will lead to one of happiness and fulfillment. I think another instance where this separation is apparent is in Kid Cudi's character, Jackson. He comes face to face with the old man, Howard, and Howard has to come to grips with the fact that this younger person that really embodies everything he hates has surpassed him in the values that he finds important, which is his own masculinity. So Jackson approaches the situation when he finds Howard, you know, approaching him in the middle of the night. He approaches the situation with a lot of confidence. He also does this in the beginning when they first meet, and Howard is just being a huge dick, and Jackson is just like straight up not taking it. He's asserting his dominance as a man and taking that away from Howard. Then later in the nighttime, Jackson literally opens the door completely naked, displaying his highly impressive manhood. His dick is fucking huge, and, you know, he's flaunting that right in this old man's face. You know, while Howard is literally unable to please his wife, Jackson is fucking multiple women with his giant dick. And, you know, in terms of the values that Howard upholds, he's essentially lost. Basically, while it may seem a little bit crude, Howard values his masculinity and sees it crushed, essentially, by meeting this younger, more accomplished person. And he takes that out, his insecurity, in a very violent way. I guess the third example that I wanted to discuss in terms of the disparity between these two generations is when Pearl runs into Bobby Lynn. So Pearl is walking outside naked. And this is sometime after having seen Bobby Lynn, you know, engaging in the pornographic film and very confidently and freely embodying and claiming her own sexuality. So for her ideology to work, Bobby Lynn has to become like the slut, the whore, the undesirable. However, you know, when she meets her, she's actually the complete opposite. She's extremely kind. She's extremely intelligent. You know, she offers to help her to get back inside, and she responds by pushing her in a lake and letting her get eaten by a gator, you know? You know, not only is her ideology coming into question, but she has to kind of assert it. You know, the slut, the whore, has to be punished. Like, she cannot abide by this person successfully getting away with the lascivious acts that she gets up to and get away with it, right? So when she gets the chance, she takes that punishment in her own hands. So I guess to tie it all together, I want to discuss how all of these issues are framed through the lens of Christianity versus secularism. As society becomes more and more progressive, and as the younger generations continue to get older and produce even younger generations, the stranglehold that religion has on morality and on culture continues to disintegrate. The primary way that this installation of ideology is shown is through the various clips of the evangelical pastor throughout the film. Maxine being the daughter of the pastor is especially significant, as it explicitly shows her rejection of her upbringing and of these values to assert her own worth and her own sexual liberation. Another example where religious morals come into conflict with the morals of the younger generation in the film is when Lorraine, or the church mouse as she's referred to in the film, blames her suffering on her sins rather than the people that are actually responsible. So what I mean by this is in the film, she's portrayed as this very kind of shy and good girl, as her boyfriend refers to her, meaning that she'd never actually take part in, you know, smut or pornography or anything sinful like that. But as she sees her new friends, you know, engaging in this kind of liberated sexuality and the happiness that comes with that, I think she becomes a little bit jealous, and she wants a taste of that freedom for herself. So she decides to do a scene in the film, and right after that, she's essentially locked in the basement and tortured, right? When Maxine finally lets her out, I found this confusing at first, but she blames Maxine for what happened. She says, "I hate you, you did this to me, I can't believe you," you know. And is just screaming and is hysterical, and it gets her killed. At first I found that to be rather perplexing, but I think that it's clearly an instance where she feels that she's being punished for her sins, like her actions are coming to roost, so to speak. So, you know, rather than blaming what happens to her on the people who did it, she blames it on herself, using this kind of warped religious thinking. So those are my primary thoughts on the themes explored in the film. I think it's a really good critique of religious fundamentalism and of sexual conservatism, and I think it's also a very good exploration into the, I guess, disparity between what a lot of older folks and a lot of younger folks have to go through. It's worth noting that the older characters in the film are not necessarily completely evil. Like, the film takes time to explain why Pearl is the way that she is and how her ideology kind of imprisons her. Yeah, so I think those are my main thoughts on it. Another thing I wanted to bring up really quick is I really like the way the film is edited in a lot of sequences. So one scene that stuck out to me early in the film is when they're leaving the gas station where they pick up some food, the filmmakers. And in the gas station, the evangelical pastor is preaching on the television. And as they're leaving, the film cuts back and forth between an image of the pastor and of cows in a field. Now, at first I was a bit confused by this, as I thought that the point that he was making would be better illustrated by shots of sheep, like the pastor leading the flock, or perhaps a critique of the sheepish mentality of, religious fundamentalism. Then a little bit later in the film, they come across a cow that was being brought to slaughter that is in an accident and is just essentially splattered and destroyed all over the road. And to me, what this editing is trying to tell us is it's foreshadowing what's going to happen to our protagonists at the hands of religious fundamentalists. So yeah, this is my first crack at actually reviewing a film and analyzing it. Comments below would be especially appreciated. Constructive criticism, compliments, critiques, whatever you want to give me would be appreciated. Please like and subscribe. I know everybody says that, but it's for a good reason, and it would help me out a lot, so thank you very much. That's all for me today. I love you very much, and I hope that your day ends better than it started.